On today's podcast of Data for All, 2023 data recap and predictions for the new year. Welcome to the Data for All podcast. I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yielding, where we want to empower you to think different with data.
And on today's podcast, we're taking a look at 2023 in data and AI, because obviously AI took over a lot this year, as well as reflect on the predictions by us that went wrong.
Oh, yeah. And we might as well take a shot at a few predictions for 2024 while we're at it.
Well, because if we were so right in 2023, we'll just nail it in 2024, right?
Well, so I just want to jump into this by saying the way we scoured all of our stuff wasn't to look for all of our content, wasn't to look for the things we got right. It was to look for the things we got wrong because it was way less.
That's right. And, we, sure. I will say, I think, well, let's start with the basics. Mm-hmm. Let's look at 2023. And Charlie, what are some things that just stand out, either in the data and AI space or just in general for you?
Well, 2024 has been a big year from a change perspective because the focus of what I do as a job has been impacted in certain ways. I can't go into full details right now, but my world got turned upside down, so to speak. Then with regards to the podcast, we've made a lot of changes this year and tried a lot of new things and added new things here and there, and then, evaluated after the fact and whatnot. But I think overall, like this year has been mostly, the elephant in the room type thing. It's just AI and how it's impacted the things that I do and like the trajectory that I'm on.
Yeah, and I think it'll be safe to say that you and I are going to have a lot of changes in 2024 for the better. We want to continue to grow. We want to do more of this kind of thing, I hope.
Well, this being our first podcast in 2024, what's up with this area?
So we're literally in my office, in my house. So we're taking, we were going to use other people's stuff, and it became the scheduling nightmare kind of thing. And I was like, I've always wanted to own my own little mixer, and I thought it would be cool, and I got a little crazy over Christmas, and I said, Charlie, we're going to do it in my house, and you're like, do I need to bring a mic? I'm like, you just got to come. I even got these couches specifically for my dog, I should say my dogs, my three dogs. So when I'm hanging out in my office working, I want to be comfortable, and why not make it a studio? So there'll be sound dampening panels up here soon. We're trying to figure out what to do behind us here, because obviously we don't want it to just be a blue wall. But for now, we're there.
We were talking about a neon Data for All sign.
My wife mentioned that. I thought that was such a cool idea.
All right. Those of us who are watching, you need to let us know, should we go ahead and get the neon sign or look for a more appropriate tapestry or something like that?
Let's go neon sign. I'm sorry. This is, let's make this room really what we want it to be. So if I was to think about 2023, I think the AI thing took over. I had a 2 to 3 month time where I was speaking like twice a week. And when I speak, I'm always trying to gauge what people are comprehending, when do they fear things, and I felt a lot of growth as a person, just understanding the landscape that's out there, and I really think that helps me for this thing called Data for All, because we want data to be for everyone, and if that's the case, it was really interesting to see what people were thinking. And if I was to say, to give a quick little blurb on that, not everybody is into AI and data like us.
Yeah.
And I was shocked by that.
Yeah. For sure.
And most people haven't tried ChatGPT. They haven't done the stuff that we've done. And I'm like, you don't live in this stuff all the time. And the truth is, no, most people don't. Most people don't understand what could come or what can come. And so all of that, I think, was really interesting. And then when you do talk about artificial intelligence, people just want to know when's the end of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And the truth is, I'm just not ready to say the end of the world's coming. And so that is something that was really interesting. So I could talk about that got me to hyper focus on the difference between humans and artificial intelligence and the real, what is an LLM? What is all of that? And obviously our listeners have benefited from that because we've used a lot of those topics in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, you hear that, listeners? You benefited.
That's right. We are going to make a change for 2024. We are busy people. We tried to go once a week.
Yeah, it almost killed me.
Yeah. So we're going to go back to our normal every other week and nailing it instead of, oh, shoot, what are we going to do this week, Charlie?
Yeah.
That's not what you should get from us. You should get 2 fantastic episodes a month.
Yeah, you decided, or we decided to go weekly, and then you started speaking 2 or 3 times a week, and then the Analytics Summit happened and all of that stuff. But I want to go back to something that you brought up that it's a good summarization that I hadn't really thought about before, but we have been really honing in on what is the AI component of the future going to look like versus the person component of it, and where does the line currently reside and where do we think it's going. And I think defining the human AI relationship is it sounds way cooler than the way I was thinking about it, but that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, and I've been throwing this out there in the little circles, during the Christmas parties, and talking about data in a way and just seeing if it landed. And I don't want to spoil it because it's actually going to be the next episode. But I really think there's a difference between artificial intelligence and the human brain right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to definitely dive into that in the next episode 38.
Yeah, for sure. Like essentially what we think of as data is no longer the same after one little bit a year in the 2020s.
Yeah.
And so, and at the end of this episode, we'll get to what we think is going to happen. And I just feel like what we think is going to happen is going to be so much smaller than the reality of the situation.
Yeah. And every month I was wrong on predictions. We only recorded certain predictions.
Wait, you were wrong. I just wanted to point out to everybody listening, he was wrong. I think I was right like 99% of the time. I can only find one thing that I was genuinely wrong about.
Sure. And if you throw enough things out there, you never know. And just don't let other people know about all the things you were wrong about. But
I may not have looked very hard either.
That's right. And some other things that I'd like to reflect on from last year. We did a live event, and obviously that was you did most of that work because I was speaking at 2 different conferences on those days.
You had 2 speeches in one day.
I did, and I did a data storytelling one, and then I did one on data to action kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. And then I had to speak the next day too at a different conference. So we did 2 live episodes there. Yeah. So we had the CDO roundtable.
Well, actually, we did more than that. We've done 2 that we've released so far.
That's right. We have at least 2 others, and we
have 2 other sit-down interviews with 1 or more people, and then we have a couple more personal interviews left, but that's it.
Gotcha. I think we've put almost all of our personal interviews out on our YouTube channel now.
It's all there.
What was some of the things? So the Analytics Summit happens here in Nashville every year. Ranges, COVID took a hit in terms of attendance for a year or 2. We've had as many as almost 800 at the event. Started out where it was just data analytics, business intelligence, but now it's everything. It's AI, data science, machine learning. So we have people from probably, I'd say, 10 states come. And so with that, what were some of the major themes that you heard in those interviews?
Yeah, so I have a fair amount of experience just with trade shows and things like that. From a general perspective, from an attendee perspective rather, and from the show's perspective, it was really good. It was a really friendly, open environment where people were genuinely there to learn. And so some of the trade shows I go to are learning trade shows, but they're not there to learn; they're there to sell. And so it was good to get in with a lot of a lot of people who are thinking about their current situation. And so I like to joke that, I stepped into your world in by going to the Analytics Summit, because that's all the data folks and everybody there knew who you were, because that's been your network for the past decade plus. And so it being my first show, I was pleasantly surprised by that general kind of attitude, because you never can tell. Like, some people are kind of gatekeepers when it comes to, like, this is my thing and you got to stay away from it. But in the actual conversations, there's a lot of curious people and just a general expectation that nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it, is that however you got to the point of data, which was another thing that I really liked, is that there were tons and tons of boot camp people just coming in. They learned by going, proactively through boot camp and getting a job proactively and stuff like that, that maintaining a network presence, at least in the data world, is positive. And so they were there from that perspective, and, just building their careers in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of people, students. That was another thing that tripped me out, was that there's a lot of students there just getting their networking starting to know who, what people are talking about in the professional world, what people are talking about that have jobs, like, what's all pie in the sky, rosy smelling stuff versus, maybe some reality that's not so pleasant.
Yeah, and in those things, of course, the networking is where you get the most. There's, we have all of the volunteers are from universities.
Yeah.
Mostly from Middle Tennessee State University, which is my former school, and Dr. Amy Harris is the one that does a great job of getting us so many volunteers there. And what I thought was so neat is we'd be having circles where there'd be a professor, a CDO, chief data officer, 2 students, and it could be a data analyst sitting there talking. And so such diversity, and I love that conference. Always do. It's also my home one, and I always speak. I think I've done some presentation at every one of them, and I think we're on year 10, and now I'm on the committee for that. And so it's a great conference, and I know that we had a great time there. Opened our eyes to a lot of things.
Yeah, but to finish off the question, as far as like what did I learn from talking to the folks there, and so it's nobody really knows what's coming, but there's a lot of people who are trying really hard to figure it out, and that was the most reassuring thing that I picked up from there, is that it's not just we're nowadays there's a lot of grandstanding and a lot of fear mongering and stuff about, like, nobody knows exactly what's going on, and so therefore we're doomed. But I like to think of it now as more, and you could call it the 2023 change of mindset if you want to. I look at it as like, sure, we may not know exactly what's going on, but just like humans have wanted to do in the past, we're trying our best to figure it out, and we will.
That's right. Yeah, and it is. I heard a lot of, how do we get value? How do we take all of these new technologies and do something with them? It's still, at the end of the day, you're trying to make a decision, you're trying to make a change, you're trying to create something, and you're doing that with new tools in a lot of cases. And it's obviously not that simple, but that was a lot of the theme that I heard there. I think looking at, we're trying our best to be very. We've got even a timer up here today. We're doing our best to keep things on there. I will say, ending 2023. Personally, I think I want to. I really enjoyed the speaking I was able to do, and I want to do more of that.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that, and really got a lot of new people in my network that are not just data people. They're they're entrepreneurs and people that are so curious. I met another person just a couple of nights ago. He's a doctor and he's created an app, and now he's heard of this thing called generative AI, and he thinks he needs it in there. And he's like, have you ever heard of? And I'm like, yeah, I know what a large language model is. And he's like, oh, and he was so excited. And we had a great hour conversation.
Did you tell him that he could listen to our podcast on LLMs?
Oh, and I did, and I don't think I had to be the one to tell him that. I think somebody else in the little circle told him that.
I do reference the podcast. If we've done a podcast specifically on something that somebody brings up, I'm just like, you should probably go listen.
Oh man, I always have it ready to go on my phone and show them. And I had somebody younger mentioned to me they really liked the networking one.
Mm-hmm.
And
did they?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And I go, did you like the part about completing a circle? And they're like, you mentioned that. What do you mean by it? And so I explained what that really means.
Oh, really?
And he's like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Okay, well then, so to clarify, a group of people talking in a circle that are so tight shoulder to shoulder, that's a completed circle.
Yeah, you can't budge into that if you're looking to start talking to new people.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
You can fit into areas where there's gaps.
That's right.
So you feel like you see you see the letter C. You're the person that's walking into that gap, and then and that's how you get into your completed circle.
That's right. So speaking of episodes. The other thing we were wanting to reflect on today were some of the episodes we've done in the past.
Yeah, like some things that have changed, some things that are different, and some things that we're just flat out wrong about.
Before we get into the terrible predictions,
sure.
We started in September of 2022. Mm-hmm. So again, 2 to 3 months before ChatGPT became a thing, or at least publicly. And so that first real episode about demystifying data, I went and listened to it again, and I don't feel we're wrong. It's just there's more.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to, in episode 38, do another new meaning of data episode. But that one, there's a couple of them that really rang true. I went back and listened to episode 10 as well, getting ready for today. And that was the one where I just finished teaching a class of freshmen. Mm-hmm. And really, that was my epiphany on conversations. Mm-hmm. In conversations, you're creating a conversation. You're not creating... Data stories are meant to fuel a conversation. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's 2 people, 3 people sitting down and saying, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and let's lead to action. But action doesn't happen because of a spreadsheet or a presentation or an email, but you are trying to create the conversation.
Yeah.
And that was my first time I really, really saw that, because the students were they did presentations, but then there were 6 of them. We ended up talking for 2.5 hours because of those presentations. Mm-hmm. And that spark, that was what was meaningful to me. And that was the beginning of me really honing in on how do I create conversations and using data as the mechanism, the spark.
Yeah.
Truly be the catalyst for whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah. Every time every time I'm having a conversation with a salesperson now, or I'm talking about our sales cycle, which I've been doing on a regular basis lately, I always say that like what we're trying to do, and I didn't have the vocabulary for it before, but we were trying to do the same thing, is like I'm trying to create a picture of an interaction using data, but also create the framework for the data story in a way that I can change the focus from, am I talking to somebody that's, cares about money or quality or both, or, maybe they care about both, but they don't really want to hear about the details and all that kind of stuff that we've talked about before. Just know your audience.
Yeah.
And so I've been using that terminology and using that way of conveying like the intent in ways that I hadn't done before, because I just didn't know. I was like, well, you got to make a story for sure, but I never really honed in on using the specific data points as the reference that you can change the story around.
Yeah. And, so many times you have conversations with people, and what's the one thing that they always negate what you're saying because, that can't be true. Mm-hmm. But if you have data, it's really hard to say that you're not true. Speaking of conversations, one of the times I spoke, this was, I think it was end of November, and I was at one of my, I like to go to retirement homes and talk about artificial intelligence. It's a great opportunity. And as I'm doing that, they had the way to connect to the screen was a Wi-Fi connection, and it didn't work. So here I am. I've got 100 people in the room, and I don't have anything. And I was going to do demos. That's all I was set up for.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, and not a teenager in sight to troubleshoot that technology.
No, because the person that was in charge just said, I don't know why it's not connecting. And I'm like, well, let's have a conversation.
That was a good joke, and you just walked right through it like it was nothing.
I was there, and you're right, though. I kept pressing a button, and then one teenager could walk over and get it to work. But
right. Anyways,
we just talked for an hour.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, and I had the best time. They've asked me now to create courses for them, and I'm like, absolutely. As long as somebody, pays me through good meals, that's all I ask for.
Okay.
But it was just this enriching conversation based on data concepts, but also where are things going to go. And that was another enlightening opportunity where you can resonate with somebody just through the personal contact.
Yeah.
So, all right. As we try to keep working things out, I'm using my iPad, and I got to make sure it doesn't go to sleep on me every 2 seconds. Charlie, what were some of the episodes going back all the way to 2022, if you'd like, that really resonated with you, or you think we might have to redo since we've started?
Well, we've done an update, but one of the bigger things is the question of who owns your data in the U.S. has changed quite a bit since we've started the podcast. And it's there's a roadmap for data ownership, whereas it used to just be California doing whatever they want to do. And what I mean by that is the Consumer Protection Acts and stuff, like CCPA in California. There are several states that in 2023 had Consumer Protection Acts go live or, be enacted, or what's the word for it when a law becomes...
an act is good enough
whatever.
For me. Yeah.
Anyways, it went into effect. We'll say that. It went into... so 4 states had Consumer Protection Acts that went into effect in 2023. There is 7 more in 2024. And then there's some after that as well that are on down the road a bit. But then... there's several other states who are talking about it, and that entire conversation is flipped on its head now because each state is actually, not each state, but most states are taking a crack at the conversation or at the idea of having the conversation, or they've passed it, or in some part of passing it. And so I like that in a lot, but it also opens up the question as far as so from a federal level, what's our standard, and then states can build on that. And that's actually one of the things that they're having issues over, I guess you could say, is because California wants a lot more on the federal level. They want the federal stuff to mirror theirs, as opposed to other states, because other states' acts have less teeth typically. So yeah, maybe you've messed up, but so what?
So I want to take a step back because this area a lot better than I do. But I did go to DC and have conversations about this with a lot of our legislative folks. And you're exactly right. What the federal level wants to do is create the baseline and then allow states to stack onto that.
Yeah.
But California's really been hard. And the truth is, it's politics right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's just we want you to give us something that has nothing to do with this. But can you just explain what you mean by a policy or something that's being enacted? Is it a privacy? It is an ownership? Is it all of it? What does that really mean?
So some of these, it depends on which state you're looking at. But so we'll just use California's, for instance. So California has certain rules that each website has to adhere to with regards to like showing your cookies. There's actually been some changes on the federal level with that as well. So every time you go to a new website, it asks you about your cookie preferences.
Every time you go, that's right.
It lets you opt out of the non-essential cookies pretty easy.
Yep.
And that's something that has come from this type of legislation. And so a state says we're doing it, and then every company in that state has to do it. And if you're out of the state and you work in that state, you have to also do it. So it's really just protecting the people that live there. And that's one of the things we talked about on the previous podcast is like nobody in the United States, and I think I said this in the podcast, except for the folks in California, have protections. And so that's a lot different now than it was before.
Yeah.
But the protections also extend to it's kind of like quasi ownership in that you can go to companies that in California, in Colorado, Connecticut, Virginia, or Utah at this point in time, and say, you need to delete my data. And what they don't necessarily have to delete it, but they definitely have to anonymize it.
Okay.
And so they get rid of your presence or all the PII or personally identifiable information that's in that database. And so then you become non-associated with that data. And so it's the weird thing is it's technically still your data. Say it's usage data.
Yep.
It's still something you could answer about yourself or that tells you something about yourself. Then when you correlate with that with other data that does have identifiers, then it can still come back at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not completely gone. Mm-hmm. And then hang on, the other identifiers. But then also they're making money off of it, but it's your usage. And you don't make anything off of it. Yeah. So it's not technically yours, but it's just your identity is stripped from it.
Yeah, and that I was thinking of that concept, and again for the next episode of just privacy in general, and
or like what is PII?
Yeah, and again that's personal identifiable information. And have we taken it too far? Have we not taken it far enough? And I think now. I actually know in the state of Tennessee, because I went and talked to some of our legislators about this, they wanted to put some AI legislation up. And so the way Tennessee works, you have to get every bill that you want to propose for 2024 done in December of 2023.
Oh, yeah. So it can be negotiated and all that kind of stuff.
Well, because they come in January and they're done in April.
Yeah.
And then they're done for the year. That's the way state legislation isn't the same as the federal.
Oh, they only have one session?
They do one session.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So if you want something in, you better get it in January. Well, we had a couple of our U.S. reps say, hey, can you please come in and explain AI to us just so that, because we're about ready to write some legislation. And they asked us, what's your recommendation? I said, don't write legislation.
That's exactly the right answer.
We're not ready.
Yeah.
We're just not ready. And
you go ahead and make the point because you're going there. Sorry.
Well, God love them. They wanted to really write legislation about how robots shouldn't roam the streets.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not artificial intelligence. So I went through my whole spiel. Oh, it could. It's not going to happen in 2024.
Yeah. We'll get there.
Prediction 1 wrong, right? But and so we had a great, healthy conversation. I was only with a few. I was happy they wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And they want me to come back and be in front of everybody and do the same kind of thing. And really, I'd talk about what is a large language model, what is it, what is the data, what is the processing of it, how they're separate, and so all of that I thought was productive. But at the same time, it's taken how many years just to get privacy laws?
I know it. I agree with you 100%. Like if they're gonna do like members of the Tennessee government, if you're gonna do AI laws, you have to learn a lot.
Yep.
And so other Charlie has offered his skills.
Sure.
He'll come in and teach you. Then you can write laws. But before you do that, or before you learn anything, I'm going to go ahead and jump on with Mr. Apigian here, or Dr. Apigian here, because you need to know that. Dr. Apigian.
That's right.
Do not write laws yet.
Well, but here's what I learned really about the way this works. You need to put something up for it to become a study in the summer. So the way that the state works is they do studies.
Okay.
And the only way to get one of those is to have it literally voted on. So we did a study about computer science in high schools. That became a study. Then it became a law, or a bill the next year that was voted on and passed. And now that's going into effect for fall of 2024. So I think he really wanted to see if he could pass something. But I think the truth is what we really recommended was do what you have to put something forward to get it to become a study.
Okay.
And they've already asked a few of us to get on that, including people that are good at responsible AI, and different things, which that would be a great topic in the future for us as well. And we have some experts pretty local here that are nationally known for what they do. And so I think that will be a good route moving forward. So how about some of the data ins? I know I'm switching quickly here, but any of the data ins that you felt some things that just resonated with you over that? So we had data in music with Trevor Hinesley.
Honestly, I liked them all.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds cliche and stuff, but every single time I think about one of the data ins we did, because we did data in news, data in music, data, the data with data in democracy.
That's right.
All of those data ins, I can think about one or two things from that. And I'm like, I really liked knowing some of that stuff, because in talking to the experts, it's refreshing to see how normal they are, but it's also good to get their takes on things and but understand and appreciate that that's where they live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, the idea, I think, looking at what data in news, we had Dr. Jen Duck on from that, who also, prior to getting into academia, was an Emmy Award winning journalist and producer. She really talked about, taking a pause, looking for fake news. And this, we didn't even talk about AI in that episode. It was still too new.
Yeah.
But what she really talked about was make sure you see both sides of everything. And it's really got me, it's like this idea of hallucinations right now.
Yeah. If
you throw 50 different versions of something at AI, it's got to pick one.
Yeah.
Just like we do. So if I get 5 or 6 truths of the same thing, I got to figure out which one's mine. That's how political beliefs get into play.
Yeah.
And so that's human nature. And so it's hard. It's hard to really sift through all of the stuff that's out there these days.
Yeah. Well, while you're on the data in the news, and also because I wrote it down earlier, but the general focus, we talked about the ground news stuff or the ground news app, or I talked about it.
Yep.
And the way it presents it is it's intentionally working against groupthink, which is a psychological concept of only looking at things you agree with, and then forming this narrative of life that doesn't meet reality because you just reinforce only the things you want to believe. And so I tell that in the United States that's pretty common these days. And I like the fact that now that there are news sources that are intentionally going out there, scraping the internet for the same stories, and then showing you here's what the minority on the far right think, and here's what the minority on the far left think, but here's what 99% of America thinks.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. It shows you it's pretty easy to see that the vast majority of all of us are centrists. Whether we lean one way or the other, it doesn't really matter, but we're not extreme.
Yeah.
But then there's a really, 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 really vocal minority on each end, and they're cray-cray, and they will not shut up.
They're the ones that are the loudest, and that's what that's what the news is. That's what things are. Can we combat it with data, Mister? I think data is always for good. That's a really good point, and I think that app is a great example of how artificial intelligence can help you sift through that, because for humans to do that is just too much work.
Yeah.
But can the sentiment of liberal or conservative be labeled on a news article probably can.
I mean, nowadays you just pick the source and it's pretty much just straight up and down one way.
That's true.
And that's the sad part and that's what they're trying to combat is the fact that like you can't, if you use like them as a news source, and this is, maybe you look under the hood in certain areas and it's not as nice as what they say, but so far it's been really cool. But, they're coming at that, and I basically can't lie to myself. I can't make myself allow myself to believe that I'm right on something that's fringe, even though the vast, it's just in my face.
Yeah. So speaking of you not being correct or not knowing if something's correct, predictions gone wrong. You wanna go there for 2023? And so this year, we didn't really do a predictions 2023 back in January of last year.
We were just getting started.
But we did make predictions during episodes. So next year at this time, we'll be able to look back at this episode.
Yeah.
Because we're going to do the silly things. And I'm not going all the way out on a limb on any of mine. You're not going to have any Super Bowl?
We got to have at least one Super Bowl prediction each.
Like real Super Bowl, or you mean like way out there thing, right? This year, the Detroit Lions will win the Super Bowl.
Well, no, obviously not like what were we calling them earlier? Hallucinations.
Yeah.
But
yes,
like things that could really happen. Super out there. Though.
And I think mine,
as far as the Lions winning.
That's right. And I thought this last year when I would make a prediction, I thought it was easily going to happen. I think the first one that comes to mind for us is when we first talked about AI and ChatGPT.
Yeah.
With our good friend, Paul Vinton.
Yeah.
Paul, our Australian friend.
And Paul, we're calling you out on the 6-month prediction.
Yeah.
So get ready for it.
And that shocked us. So basically what happened is that was March when we had that episode.
Yep.
And Paul is a serial entrepreneur, tech entrepreneur from Australia. Got to know him really well. We brought him on for a ChatGPT episode. At that point, it was 3.5, I'm pretty sure. So we hadn't had 4 come out yet. And we were just like, oh, this is cute. And he's like, I'm telling you right now, in 6 months, the world will be different.
Well, he was specifically saying that in 6 months, the GenAI would be powerful enough to be writing things unassisted.
And we were like, "You're crazy." And
I still think he's crazy. People still have to exist. Like we were saying it under the context of like people have to work around AI, and we still say that. But what he was saying is after 6 months or 6 months from then, which it came out in April, and so we'll count it to October, November, whatever. He's just wrong because it can't be by itself. But I don't think he's wrong because it wasn't possible. I think he was wrong because of the lack of overall adoption, which is where I was wrong because I thought that everybody would be on this thing, lickety split, and just like, I can't believe how amazing it is. And that's one of the things that I've been most surprised at is people's like lack of understanding, not just of like how to use it best, but what the hell it is. Yeah. And because I've talked to several people in the past few weeks that are just like, yeah, I've thought about maybe using it, but I don't really know. Like, I just don't know. And I don't know what, like where the website is, and they're like, yeah, I just don't know what it's for. And it's like, you don't know like how they don't even know that it can talk to you.
Yeah.
And so some people are getting their minds blown, but I think that's overall slowed down like the adoption. And then like you were talking about earlier, just the confusion on the top end of things, like with the government and stuff like that. It's been not as spectacular from an end user perspective as I thought, even though the news coming from, OpenAI and Anthropic and all that kind of stuff has been amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's been exciting for me, but I just don't think that enough people are excited, and it makes me not as excited. Yeah.
And I think to go to Paul's point, his premise was correct. Mm-hmm. The game changer. He kept saying game changer.
Oh, he did. Yeah, that's true.
But his examples, of course, those didn't pan out as much. I would say my big prediction after I think our when was we did GPT-4 and Beyond was episode 17. So 15, we're talking about ChatGPT for the first time. And then I think 2 days later.
So there's a little bit of a glitch in how we numbered it. So we actually did 16 was GPT-4 and Beyond because we had scheduled it to come after Data in the News, but then we flipped it because we were just like,
I gotcha.
The day after the 3.5 episode came out, 4 was released.
Yeah.
Or announced and then released. And so it broke everything.
Yeah.
And then so we went in, re-recorded, and then we came back and we did it fast enough to where we could have it be the next episode instead of Data in the News. And then we did Data in the News.
Gotcha. That's right. We did flip that one. And the thing that I was thinking was GPT-5 would be out in 2023.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. I think I was reading that, and I was thinking that would be video. That would be, and instead, what we're seeing is GPT-4 is continually getting better.
Yeah, it got multimodal,
and now you can go in and create images. They remember things. Leonardo actually is the one that is doing a pretty good job of taking an image and making it video now, and that came out this week.
Yeah, you were playing with that earlier, right?
Yes, and I'm actually using Leonardo almost exclusively. Leonardo.ai is what I'm now using for images.
Is it just better than Dolly?
It's more to play with. You know what it does is it has like 7 or 8 really good models. And so you could have the same prompt and use it for the 7 different models.
Oh, and it'll give you options.
And because one will make it look like anime, really good. One makes it look retro pictures. You can add that as I want it to look like that, but this is literally the model.
Yeah.
It's based on that. So it has Stable Diffusion as a model directly in there, is 1.5 and 2.1. And you can train your own models based on you using Stable Diffusion, and then saving it in there. So it's just a user-friendly way of using some of the stuff that would be hard-coded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I really, again, it was Christmas time. You know, I always need something to play with. And that was the one that I started playing with. I'm not dying to do video. I think video is going to look bad for a while unless you have millions and millions of dollars like they do in the movie industry.
Well, I think that for all intents and purposes, that doesn't matter because I think you're thinking like production scale versus like I'm going to make a little 15-second TikTok video.
Yeah, you know, I've had so many people say, you need to make an AI of you, and then that can teach your classes. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
We're so far from that.
That's true. For now, well,
yeah.
What is so far? I guess that's kind of the thing is, are we 2024 far or 2025 far?
Well, and again, here's something I've thought about with the whole AI thing. If you know it's AI, but it's still giving you a great experience like a normal human would.
Yeah.
Isn't that okay?
I feel so. I feel like it is.
I know that I have an app that I do PT for my hip with, and I probably have mentioned it before on the podcast. I know there is some automated responses coming back to me.
Well, you're even getting
it nudges me.
Even when it's a real person there, the vast majority of the responses are templates.
That's
what does it matter if
copy and paste or GenAI generated?
Yeah. It's just, well, like when they're in, so I know this because we do this kind of stuff, but you'll say something and then they'll have three different selections based off of whatever their knowledge base flow, call flow looks like, or decision tree. And so that's true. But on the particular note of support and help and all that kind of stuff though, like there's a line. So as a mobile help desk, like we provide support to end users, and then, and so a bot can do 95% of it.
Yeah. But
then where's the point where it switches from the bot to the real human?
Yeah.
Like there's got to be some place, because if I think ethically it's inappropriate to lie and say that you're talking to a real person when it's GenAI. And so if you type in, I want to talk to a real person, that could be a trigger to flip over to a real person. Yep. What are the other ones? Like if the person's seeming frustrated, like, because we can do that now. We can judge emotional state based off of AI, and then if they get agitated, then the real person comes in. Or maybe it initiates the, like, hey, give me your phone number and I'm going to call you and we're going to have a conversation rather than talking on this thing.
Yep. Yeah. There's I have seen a couple of demonstrations of the help desk type stuff where GenAI gives it suggestions, but the human has to hit enter on their end, or they can add more stuff to it. And I thought that was definitely a good use of it today as they continue to test it out. So every time you can feel from this one company that if you're getting an answer, it might be GenAI created, but somebody approved it, a human did.
You know what I think about that? I think that's stupid.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because the reason a company exists.
Well, tell me what you really think.
Is to make money. And the second a company decides that I'm going to do something less efficient, then they stop making money. And then somebody somewhere in the organization is going to pay. So we've talked in the past about hyper producers or hyper. No, that's hyper producers. That's what we called it. So right now, if an agent can handle 600 phone calls a month because they have to answer every single one of them, if we introduce AI as like that bottom level with no human touch, apart from just the training and the natural like maintenance people, not support people, then one agent can support way more people than they could otherwise. You could say one agent and their time with AI assistance that's built by the company could support 20 times more, 30 times more people, because the only people that you're talking to are that 5%. So we'll call it 20 times more, because you're talking to the 5% of the people that the AI can't deal with, but you're still managing as a human being that entire deployment.
Yeah.
And so that's a hyper producer from a business perspective that a company can create on their own. And so this whole mix and mash model where you introduce people in just kind of arbitrarily that mindset has to go, because you're not looking to necessarily get rid of jobs, but those people got to do different stuff now. Yeah. They've got to be in charge of the knowledge base, or they've got to be in charge of some business or some part of the business around the AI, because it's still going to take a fair amount of people to get them going. And in the beginning, it's going to look more like a swap, as opposed to down the road where you can scale from that point, we'll call it 20-fold without necessarily having to increase your infrastructure from a people perspective. And so talking about reflecting on 2023, nowhere in my mind did that exist 12 months ago.
Wow. You know what? I think you just gave one of the best examples I've heard of where things are going with AI. I mean, that was well said. Now think about this. If you can handle 20 times more, do the number of calls coming in go up by 20 times? Or is it the same number of calls, which means you need less people?
It's the same number of interactions. Yeah. So you're not going to have... that's a good question, because it helps build an understanding in a way that I wasn't really thinking about. And so the work is static, meaning that if you're an enterprise company that we do business with, you call us about 10% of your entire deployment every month. So if you've got 100,000 devices out there, you call us 10,000 times.
Okay.
And so what I'm
saying, you're doing support for devices, right?
For mobile devices, cell phones.
Yep. Okay.
Cell phones, IoT devices, like whatever. If it's got a mobile radio or a mobile OS, we support it. But of that 10,000 people who are calling in, 95% of it can be handled by bots, because it's simple stuff. I need to enroll my device. How do I do that? And then a bot can tell them how to do that, because it's just step 1, step 2, step 3. And it can be customized to give them their own company information. And so you're not getting rid of any work. You're just handling a lot more of it through AI. And then the one agent, and so it was a little bit of a misdirection before, because it's not just the one agent that's supporting all of those people.
Sure.
It's the one agent and everybody climbing around the AI to make sure that it's giving the right information. And so it's a team of people still, but it's a much smaller team at scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you could think of other industries, and I know we're going off on something, but I think this is really important. A doctor, take 50% of what they do.
Are we in predictions already?
we're getting there. But that kind of stuff, and that literally is my real prediction. So we'll save that for another episode. But I think what you just did was a great example.
Well, we're doing predictions though, right?
We are doing. I meant getting into one of my predictions in particular for an episode and things like that. Other ones that we'll just finish up episodes here. The other one where we talked a lot and it changed the next day was home automation.
Yeah,
and that's fine, right? You got to talk about it in that day, and if you always wait until the next thing comes out, the next thing comes out. And so, but major changes where, what was the big thing that you noticed after we did that episode?
So one of the things that we didn't really talk about was thread technology.
Yeah.
But thread technology has existed for years, but it was underutilized because Wi-Fi, like devices you had weren't thread enabled in a way that was really beneficial. But one of the things that we missed the news of it, but it hadn't released yet. And so that's the Matter. It's called Matter, Matter. It's an open AI, or not open AI. I've got AI on the brain. It's an open source protocol that all 550 tech companies got together and said, we're building this so we can all use it, so we can all work together easily. And so that Matter protocol works with threads that can be in your Wi-Fi routers. It can be in your Google Homes, certain Google Homes. There's older technology that can't support threads, but threads is like a repeater situation. So you don't need to have every single piece in your house covered. You don't need bridges anymore. You don't need hubs anymore. It's just you need your Wi-Fi, and you need maybe a couple of devices like a HomePod here or HomePod there to relay the information. And then the Matter stuff makes it to where I can use anything anywhere, because a big part of the conversation we had was like, well, this is what you can get with Apple, and this is what you can get with Amazon, and this is what you can get with the assistant was a big part of the conversation, because some of the positives were it could do these things assistant wise, but then it didn't connect to very much. And so that's where you found yourself with the switching to the HomeKit. After this Matter protocol came out, it just makes it to where every device pretty much sold after the fall of 2022 is compatible with the same system. And it doesn't matter if you're using Siri. Oh, sorry, everybody. It doesn't matter if you're using the Apple AI or the Google AI or anything like that. It all works now. Everything
should now technically can talk to each other. And as a side note, in the beginning of December, I went to Boston and got to meet and spend a lot of time with David Brock. David Brock was at MIT, and he's the one that came up with IoT. And it was so cool to hear a brilliant guy talk about things. We were talking about artificial intelligence, kind of the same concept with AI that he's really interested in, and just really, really cool. But, he just was adamant that devices should be able to talk to each other. And everybody was telling him he was crazy at that time. And now what you just explained was really his thesis, which was every device should be able to talk to each other regardless.
So he was absolutely right from the moment he said that. And it's just taken 20 some odd years, 30 some odd years.
Yeah, at least 30. At least 30. That's unbelievable. All right, so we hit on a couple of the places we went wrong, and the home automation one, I think we'd spend a lot of time talking about which ecosystem to live in, and now it's like, it's great that you can just be.
But only a quarter of the episode is actually valid anymore.
But go back and listen to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to try to do a couple of predictions?
Yeah.
Okay. My first one is, I think, do you want to go first? Me go first? I'll go.
Well, I think I don't want to sit on your, I don't want to sit on your main thing. So go ahead with your first one, and then I'll give one.
Okay. This one, I've been saying it a lot. I don't know if I've said it much on the podcast or not, but right now we're working with large language models. Large, I meant to say the word large there and exaggerate it because, if you think about GPT-4, it is 1.5 to 1.7 trillion parameters, and all of that to be said, that costs maybe $500 billion to train some ridiculous number.
Oh, you're talking about GPT specifically.
Talk about GPT.
Yeah, because we were talking about $500 million to train GPT, and then
$1 billion for the new. What's Gemini?
Gemini. Yeah,
Gemini.
Gemini was trained a lot faster though.
It was, and has 1.6 trillion parameters. What you're going to see is more domain-specific applications. Mm-hmm. You're going to have ones that are finance-based. You're going to have ones that are law only, and you're going to get rid of a lot of the noise because hallucinations happen because it's pulling from everywhere.
Yeah.
When all you really want to know is something about mortgages or something like that. So then you just want one specific for that. A company that is doing that I thought was really interesting, we'll put this in the show notes, is Mistral, Mistral. Right now, what they have created is basically 8 different domains of data. And so if you ask a question, it will probably only look at 2 of those domains, and just based on whatever your question is. So instead of looking at all of the parameters, it's only looking at, 25% of them.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot faster, it's a lot more efficient, and it allows you to continue to expand.
Yeah.
So this idea of connecting AIs is really interesting to me. But create one specific for what you need, and then do you need that to connect to the really big one, or is it good enough for just your application? Then it's good enough.
Okay, so I think when I saw domain-specific applications, I wasn't thinking that. That's actually a really cool way to manage AI at scale, I think. I thought what you meant by, and this was something that I was bringing in, was the domain-specific uses, meaning that like we've got the Dr. GPT, or we've got with the introduction of GPTs as its own thing. Like each one of those could be something. Like I've been working on a help desk GPT.
Yeah, and that is.
And it's that's the thing where I don't know if it's safe to say by the end of 2024 or not. So this will be my bold prediction, is that we have certain jobs that are replaced in a direct way by a GPT or by a bot.
Yeah, I think that is bold because the ramifications are bold, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of people are not. The folks who are crying ethics aren't necessarily all talking about plagiarism. Some are talking about how you're going to upset the economy and things like that, and that is going to happen. And so, going back to what I was saying before, like the best way to stay safe in your job, if you've got like a fringe job potentially, is to start looking into pivoting into managing the infrastructure of what it is that you do instead of doing the job directly. And what I mean by that is like somebody's got to feed the bot information.
Yep.
Somebody's got to maintain there's still going to be personal touch and everything. So it can't be completely gone. And so can you do QC or can you do maintenance in some way, shape, or form? Start to figure those things out. Maybe it's something that's worthwhile for us to talk about. Like what are the top 5 jobs around AI? Yeah,
and we did. I know we did a Data 4 on that, but we got to dive into that and get into the skills needed. But the truth is, if you're not in a position where your job touches data or you have to know something about data, you're going to get replaced probably.
Well, I can tell you that one skill that you need is organizational skills. Digital organization skills is going to be a must, because if you're going to work with it, it's going to if you're going to work with AI, it can't be wrong, or it's got to be wrong as little as possible, which means that if you're going to input or feed into AI, you've got to be organized.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to get started. So pro tip for 2024, figure out how you do your files, how you keep up with tasks and all that kind of stuff we've talked about before with personal process, because you've got to be strict and rigid and accountable if you're going to remain.
Yeah. And so just to finish mine up.
Oh, yeah.
When I first started thinking of domain-specific applications, it was create your own for your company and then use, the GPT-4s of the world and things like that. That is still going to happen. But Mistral has me thinking differently now. Now you can create your own, and then there can be other ones that you can just bolt on, as opposed to this big one that's just out there. And maybe that'll get rid of a lot of the noise. Because I've seen examples of people, asking for help from a chatbot, and they're able to ask it, who won last night's Pistons game, which, by the way, was not the Detroit Pistons. They're on a 28-game losing streak.
Oh, man, literally nobody cares.
Yeah, I know, but it's my team, darn it. And it was giving it the answer when it's a mortgage company. All
right. So then let me jump in with my second prediction then, because it ties to this in that people are going to feed or find out how to feed data to the masses and get paid for it. And so when I say people, I mean, it could be individuals, but more often than not, it's going to be companies. So like right now, when we had the CDO roundtable, like we're talking about how they set up their high value data behind like a paywall, essentially, like APIs and whatnot. I feel like in the context of what you're talking about, domain specific expertise, maybe all the data is valuable, and then that's how you get paid for all of your data, is to feed it into these models, because these models are, if they're saying that they do what you do, then you've got the data. Because I'm just thinking about, again, from my perspective, like I don't know if there's anybody else who has more mobile help desk data than I do. Like, and so if I've got that and somebody has a question about mobile help desk data, or if they've got a bot that works with it in some way, shape, or form, like I'll sell them access to my data. And so my prediction is that by the end of 2024, a commonplace model for selling or making money off data will exist.
Yeah. And so again, it goes to the ability to either put it into applications or connect it to others, because nobody's going to be exactly your company. But if they can use part of your engine and your knowledge base to enhance what they're doing, and you don't need all of the other stuff, all of the other things. That one's not sure if it's going to happen by the end of 2024, just because business goes slow.
It does,
but it's going to happen.
So, what is the thing that drives business, though? And we're currently in the middle of an economic slump, if you will. And so, if you're a CDO, like our friends that we talked to earlier this year, and you've got the ability to not just increase, but like make revenue come out of thin air, like the money's coming your way. Yeah, like that companies will see that, they will spend money quickly, and then that's what they respond to. So far, it's been, how can we use this to make employees' lives better? How can we use this to be more productive? Which is all good and everything, but that is normal business scale, like time. But this one's just like new money. I'm on it. Yeah.
Well, I think there's some validity to that one. All right, I'm going to keep going here. And one of our predictions is that we're not going to finish in an hour.
Oh, no. When we went on that tangent earlier, I almost said something like, just like, bye.
Yeah, but we'll not be an hour in 55 minutes. How's that?
Sure.
Here's one I think, normally I see this happen, whether it's the internet or when mobile phones happened. There's a huge innovation. And then there's a malaise after that of just crappiness. And I'll just say it the way I think of it. And what I mean by that is I believe 2024 will see less innovation and a lot of people trying to figure out how to either monetize or just do things. And that in the app space is going to be a lot of inferior products. Just stuff that's like, there's going to be 80 different ways to do this AI thing. Yeah. And almost all of them will be terrible. Yep. Just like when we had iPhone apps in the early days. They were awful, right? Just push this button. I mean, that literally was an app. And we're going to see a lot of that. I mean, we already are seeing there's so many text to image things out there. There's 2 or 3 good ones, and the rest are just awful. There's the logo maker one. There's this. And a lot of times they're just repurposing the other innovations. Yeah. And so you're getting kind of the same things. But I just know that we saw text. We saw generating text. We then saw text to image. we're starting to see some innovations with text to video or image to image type stuff. I just don't see the major wow in 2024, but I do see a lot of that's kind of cool. We're going to hear a lot of that kind of stuff.
I agree with that. Especially if the GPT market's announced and stuff, there'll be some really cool stuff on there at the beginning. But like you said, there's not going to be any really mature offerings.
Yeah.
And so it's the same. I think that's a good prediction just in general. Maybe he's too safe.
Yeah, well, because we've seen it so many times. I mean, think about PDF readers. At the end of the day, we're probably just going to want Adobe to create one.
Yeah.
And then we'll feel like it's safe, right? Instead of, PDF Mojo or something.
No, that's fair. That's definitely fair.
I know I've been talking to a lot of engineering companies just because my son's in engineering now, and my wife works.
You mean he's a mecha mechanic?
No, my oldest.
Oh, okay.
My oldest is a civil engineer,
Okay.
and then my wife works at a structural engineering company. Yeah, and then my son is trying to be the robotics guy. So I'm really interested in that field. Autodesk has all of the data. Everything. They're going to win in the engineering space.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the little itty bitty app here or there.
Yeah, like Westlaw and LexisNexis on the law side have already jumped into it full force.
And so we're going to see some big winners, but it's not going to be the wow. It's going to be the, that was nice. That now does that.
Yeah.
And so, so I think there'll be a lot of that. All right, I'll let you have another one here.
So we were talking about adoption earlier. And I do think that this is going to be a big year for adoption. I do think it kind of ties into your what you're saying is there's going to be a lot of churn around things you can do, and so I think that's going to get a lot of people interested in stuff. But I do think that this year is going to realistically be your AI is now working with a GenAI. So your Google Assistants, your SIRIs, your I can't say her name, can I? Your Amazon stuff. Yeah. Those are going to be maybe not frontline into the Gen AI, but you'll have access to them. And the thing that's really got me believing that is that, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but Grond is not, I don't know if it's Grond. What's the AI on Twitter now?
Grok.
Oh, gosh, that's so stupid. That's not the only AI out there. And so you can do AI on Instagram now, and it's images and everything. And so I think that AI is going to be so accessible to everybody over this over the coming year that's when by the end of this coming year, a lot more people are going to know what AI is and that it's going to be impactful.
Now, what you just said, in just to put it in different context, right now, the Alexa one is rules-based.
Yep.
You have to say something a certain way for it to give you the right answer. That's not generative AI at this point. So you're right. It's going to completely be Gen AI, I would assume, as well by the end of the year. Siri, same thing. Siri's terrible, right?
Setting everybody off.
All right. Those are some good ones. I know I'd like to talk about those throughout the year. I think we'll do that. I'll make two more really quick ones.
Okay.
All right. First one, whatever we predict will be wrong.
Okay.
I already know that one's going to be correct.
I mean, whatever you predict to be wrong.
I got whatever I predict, I will be wrong. I did say that. That's true. 2024 is going to be a big year for Charlie Apigian.
Oh, yeah?
I've got some big things happening. They're in the works. You know of all of them, but you got to act dumb for now.
You're cooking, as the youngins would say?
Yes.
Nice.
And I'm really excited for a lot of the stuff. That includes Data for All. That includes hopefully more public speaking opportunities. That's what I'm really excited for. And more importantly, that's why I wanted to have a studio here in my house. I just want to take more time for myself.
Yep.
And do things that I really enjoy. And so I'm hoping 2024 is a good year.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
I am, this is from a technology perspective, I feel I don't have to want for anything. I say that I actually do want a good video option from AI because there's things I want to create and whatnot. But I think this year I need to really like take the time to realize that I need to take care of myself.
Nice.
Like I need to make sure that I eat lunch every day instead of just working through, and I need to make sure that I'm working out every day. And I need to slow down and appreciate the meat sack that is me, so I can better appreciate all the things that are coming and whatnot.
We'll see, and people keeping you accountable for that is a good way to do that. I'll keep you accountable.
Yeah.
You keep me accountable. And I know we're going to have a lot of really good episodes coming up. I think we're at hour 10. That's not terrible. That's good for us.
That's I stopped looking once we made that tangent because I knew there was no point in keeping up with it anymore.
Yeah, we did good. We kept to a script sort of. And I think for having this be our first episode in 2024, we did all right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So I actually wrote down an actual outro, and I'm going to try to stick to it this time. But I just want to thank everybody, first of all, for listening to the Data for All podcast since the inception, or if it's your first time. And if you do like what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast player, and or go to our website, dataforall.io. That's data, the number 4, and all.io, and there you'll not only find our podcast episodes, but you'll also find out information about Charlie Yielding, and maybe me. And more importantly, we also now have on our website all of our YouTube episodes, interviews, you name it. If we've put it into YouTube, it's there. And you can, of course, please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And so again, thank you for listening. And for the Data for All podcast, I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yielding.
And until next time.